You can be whatever you want to be, no matter what you're living with. HIV, sickle cell, thalassemia, nothing should derail you, nothing should distract you. Even if you have 50 years in life, that 50 years can be very impactful. Your time here matters to you and to everyone around. Make it worth it.
What is a genotype? What is your blood group? What is sickle cell anemia? What's the relationship of these three things I've just mentioned to the person you should date or should not be dating, or get married to or not get married to in the future? All of this and many more are questions that my guest today will be answering. Join me as I welcome Dr. Kemi Okwuegbuna. Hello, Kemi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
you're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. We love having you here. So I'm going to get right in. When people hear of sickle cell, it's almost like a death sentence. I want you to talk to us about that. But first, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kemi Okwuegbuna. I am a medical doctor by profession with almost 2 decades of medical practice. I worked in Nigeria as hematological pathologist, and then I moved out of the country to practice in Saudi Arabia, came to US for a master's, and now I'm here by God's grace doing a pathology residency at McMaster University.
Wow. Wonderful. Yes. You are one smart woman.
I like to think so myself.
I bet you should, and you should be very proud. Absolutely. Now, Kemi, the matter of sickle cell, it has not gained enough attention as other diseases like autism, for example. And I dare say that sickle cell is as debilitating as autism, if not more. So why don't you tell us about that? Why is it that in this part of the world, sickle cell is not understood and has been shelved to the bottom bench?
Well, I wouldn't really say it's been shelved per se. I think it's more like the people that it affects most are probably not making so much noise as it should be done, as compared to those that are, suffering from autism or the other diseases. Sickle cell affects people of color, so to speak, Africans, Asians, and people from Mediterranean. It was most especially Africans. Yes, especially people from the West African region of the world. So Ghanaians, Nigerians, and whatnot, that area, most especially. Yes. So I think for this part of the world, people coming in, the immigration, and then have given birth to, getting married, the way it's being explained is not really as deep as if you were back home. So back home, you have the churches, the religious organizations trying to drum it into your ears that before you marry person A, both of you need to go and do a test so that you have an informed decision of the genotype you both carry. So you are aware that you're going into this if both of you are sickle cell carriers, right? And then you plan whether you want to go on with the marriage or not. But here, it's not really a public health emergency per se, because maybe they don't know. We have to come and tell them that this is, now that we are here, this is what we are going through, and this is what is expected of the health system, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So you are a hematologist.
Hematologist.
That's always a tongue twister for me.
So it's a tongue twister because not fully a hematologist. I'm a hematopathologist, which means that we make laboratory diagnosis of this blood disorders, and we also manage patients that have blood disorders. So it's like you're working in the lab as a lab doctor, and then you work in the clinic too, or hospital setting at the same time. So
in a sense, you have a dual role.
Yes.
And so how many blood types are there, and what should people be looking out for?
So when you talk about blood types now, you're talking about blood donation. So the red cell, like many other cells in the body, has some proteins on the membrane,
Mhm.
and that tries to identify you now as Modupe and me as Kemi. So this blood type, the most common blood types are A, B, and O. Everybody has A, B, or none of them. And if you have none of it, neither A nor B, you become O.
Oh.
Yes. And then there's another type of blood type called rhesus. So rhesus is either you have it or you do not have it. So it's either you're rhesus positive or rhesus negative. That way, somebody can be A positive or A negative, or B positive or B negative, or O negative, meaning they neither have A nor B nor rhesus.
Wow.
So there are different kinds of combinations, and there are also so many types, thousands of other blood types that are peculiar to a set of people that other people do not have as well.
So how do people even understand who a carrier is? I know that when I was growing up, they'll tell you if you have AS, if you are AS, you should not marry someone with AS. So what is this AS? What is the... Let's break it down. You are a doctor, we're here, so that people can understand.
So
people like me.
So blood group is different from blood genotype.
Great.
Right? So blood group is what I discussed about A, B, and O, the major types. So when you talk about sickle cell, we're talking about the genotype. So genotype is the things in the cells, in the nucleus of the cell that makes you who you are. Right? So for A and S, they are like so I'm trying to make it as simple as I can.
Yes. Please.
Okay, so there are some proteins in the nucleus of the human body. These proteins are determined by the genes that you have, that all of us have. So when we develop these proteins, it now determines how we look and how we present. So for sickle cell in particular, it's just like a mutation in the protein that normally is involved in hemoglobin production. And hemoglobin is a protein that carries oxygen around the body. So in the case of sickle cell now, is sickle cell anemia is when you have the two S genes. So one from the mother, one from the father. So you have S from the father and S from the mother coming together in a child, becoming SS. So that SS becomes sickle cell anemia, right? If by any chance the father gives A and the mother gives S, the baby will be AS. If by any chance they both give A and the other, the baby becomes AA. So there's a lot of permutations and combinations that might happen, such that in parents, two parents, mother and father that have AS, they might have all four children to be SS and none of them to be SS. It's just depending on chance, the things that happen that we can't really explain.
Right.
Yes. So for sickle cell anemia, it has to be a combination of both parents in donating the S gene.
Yes, gene.
Yes.
And so just for clarity for our viewers who may not be too familiar with this, so when someone comes out with S and S, that is when they become a sickle cell carrier.
No, it's sickle cell
anemic person.
Patients, yes.
Okay.
If you have A and S, you become a sickle cell carrier. If you have something else combined with the S, you become a carrier. Or you have the disease.
Oh, I see.
Because some of them still have some disease as some anemic features compared to those that have completely AA. Right? They still fall ill. They still have some hemolytic crisis as compared to those that have also, although there are other factors that come into play, if you're going to balance out every other factor, an AS individual might fall ill more often than an AA individual. Yes.
Interesting. And which genotype are you?
Okay, for me, I have sickle cell disease. I have a combination of S from one of my parents and C from the other of my parents. So
C.
Yes, so it's SC. It's relatively not so common as compared to...
not.
Yeah, because not many people have it. Not many people know that they have it, because I think maybe because they don't fall ill as much and they kind of live good, good lives. And by the time I even knew, I was much, much older. Because I remember my mom telling me that if you are going to date anybody, make sure the person is AA. And I'm like, why? She then started breaking it, and she didn't know and all that my dad was SC. and my dad lived up to 75. So it was like, you don't know these things until you check, until you know your blood status, right? So it was like a determining factor for whoever I was dating or wherever I was seeing or wherever I will be seeing that, okay, what's your genotype? I don't want
first things first.
First things first. I don't want to take you home and then I have to take you back to where I found you, you know? So yes, it was something that, so, and that's the difference between part of the world and this part. You get to be informed. Everybody talks about sickle cell. Everybody knows about sickle cell. So you try, and you may even see some people that have the physique of a sickle cell patient and others don't, right? So these are questions that you try to find out. But if you are too young, you might not think it matters, but your parents are there to guide you accordingly, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what will be the difference between an SC and an SS? Is there one that is much more dangerous? Is there one you can say, I'm really in love with this guy and he's SC and I'm just going to go for it?
As I said, it's an informed decision. So if you want to date someone that is has a sickle cell gene, you would have to be aware that, okay, this is what may happen, especially if you also have the gene itself. So theoretically, an SS anemic patient might fall ill more often than an SC patient. They usually do, not even might, they usually do fall ill. A lot of times, like in those days, even now, they do not survive up to like 5-10 years, you know, all things being equal, except if you have to, you know, go out of the way to give them top-notch medical attention.
Top-notch.
Yes, that is the only way they survive. And it's that bad in Nigeria or in Africa because of malaria and other extraneous factors like heat, low extremes of temperature, and all that.
Those can complicate.
That can complicate. So it just means that the red cell is friable enough to hemolyze in the vessels, and then it cause a problem in the vessels, and then the blood flow to vital parts of the body is compromised. Yes, and then there's pain, there's necrosis, there's infection, and it goes on and on. Yeah.
So are there certain myths around sickle cell anemia that people should be should be aware of? For example, they say if you're anemic, if you have sickle cell anemia, you do not live past X number of years.
There's several myths. Yeah, of course, that's really not true.
They're not true.
If you have sickle cell anemia and you're well managed, it's very likely you live long. The only issue is that as a child, there are so many, if you fall ill, often have a lot of crisis that is not, you know, immediately attended to or addressed. It might lead up to some complications along the way, like it's those complications that actually shorten the lifespan of the person.
I see. Now, as an SC, you are a carrier, a sickle cell carrier. That's what. How has that impacted you? Has that impacted you in any way?
I wouldn't say no. I won't say it has impacted me in any way. Maybe I might feel tired more often than not, but no. Maybe I've been able to handle myself as I should. I know my body. I know when I should take time out. But aside from that, it's been fine all the way. I have 3 children. I'm doing well, you know. So it's good.
Are any of your children carriers?
No. Of course, they are carriers because I have S or C, right? But my husband isn't. So there's a balance.
There's a balance.
Yes.
Wonderful. Now, have you experienced any kind of challenge because of having sickle cell, either through a relative or a friend? Has that impacted people you know in any way?
Oh, definitely. I had a cousin that I lost because of complications of sickle cell. We were actually mates. We were both the same when he passed on. And my best friend in high school, she was my best friend in high school, as I said. She was a law student eventually, but then she passed on from complications of sickle cell too. So it's been really hard, and having to have a child or a friend or knowing someone that eventually passes, you know, so you don't get to live the rest of your life together. It's difficult, and I feel for anyone that has lost someone for whatever reason, not even just because of sickle cell, you know. But these are things that can be managed and even ultimately can be prevented, right? By having an informed decision, as I said, or getting good management for it. Which brings me back to why I became a hematologist.
I was going to ask, did that have any impact in you in studying what you studied?
It did, because my mom drumming into my ears that you have to be, you have to look for someone that is not sickle cell or does not have the gene, and I kept qualifying and disqualifying suitors was ridiculous, you know, but I had to do it because that was the instruction I got from home. And she also instigating me to find out that, okay, where exactly do these people, it's like they are being, what do you call it now? They are being judged for what something that is really not their fault. They were born that way. They didn't acquire it, you know, while born. So I wanted to know more, and I was more intrigued because I lost people because of this. So I went into hematology and the diagnosis and the treatment, and I found out that, okay, a major part of management of sickle cell anemia and many other blood disorders is transfusion. So blood transfusion. So I can get blood from someone that is not that has enough blood to share with me, and I can live a good life. As a baby, they might have to take out some of my blood and replace with that, which is called an exchange blood transfusion. Yes, so gives me a lease of life. I can be normal again, at least for a period of time. So it was something that really intrigued me into becoming a hematologist.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. And we're going to go into, because I know that you've also begun a foundation here in Canada, but I don't want to lose my thought here. So you're on the topic of blood transfusion.
Yes.
We are in Canada, or we're in Ontario. Let me not talk about the whole of Canada now. I do know that there's always a call for people to donate blood.
Yes.
Is that a thing within the African or the Nigerian community? Because I have gone several times, and I don't know your experience, but I've gone several times to want to give blood. And twice I think I went, and I just said no more. But on the 2 occasions I went, I was told that I was anemic and I didn't have enough blood to give. And I was quite disappointed because I feel healthy and I feel I have enough to give. I had actually donated blood in Nigeria and there was no issue. So what is that a thing? You're a doctor. Why is that? Why is it that we can't donate blood here?
A good number of reasons. So the policy for now is that if you have a particular level of hemoglobin or iron level, or if you've lived in Africa before, we were born in Africa at one time or the other, of course, born in Africa, beginning of your life, you are automatically disqualified from transfusing, from donating blood. And so it takes me back to why I started Know Your Blood. When I came
That's the name of your organization.
That's
Know Your Blood.
Know Your Blood. When I came to Canada, I came during COVID. So eventually when they let everyone out, I went out. I was in, we were indoors for months.
Yes.
So I went out to the store and I looked around at one point in time and I did not see a white person. So I saw people that looked like me. I saw Asians, I saw Indians, I saw it was like we were in an Olympic stadium without the host.
Without the host.
Yeah. And as a doctor, as an epidemiologist, I was like, okay, so all of us here are probably immigrants at one time or the other. Who is treating our blood disorders? We are all coming with one inherited or familiar problem or the other. And as a hematologist, I was taking blood. How are they treating those that have sickle cell? How are they treating those that have thalassemia? Because these are more common in some regions of the world more than others.
I live with thalassemia.
Oh, really? See, you would never know.
I didn't know until I came here.
Exactly.
So that's the genesis of my constant anemia.
Exactly. So this is Know Your Blood. If you didn't know, because there's some things that are not public health problems, such that if you are okay physically, you have your children and nothing happened, you're good. But by the time you start going deeper, you find out, okay, you're actually carrying something that it might be worse, because if you admire someone with the thalassemia gene, and then your child will be the one carrying the brunt from both parents, you know. Anyway, back to my story. And I started thinking, okay, so how are these people going to be managed when they go to see a doctor? And then I get to have a family doctor. And as I was telling him that I live with sickle cell, he didn't believe me. I was like, I know I have sickle cells, SC gene, and I know I should be doing my checkup every year at least to know what's going on with me. He didn't believe me. You know what he did? He didn't answer me. He just registered me, asking for regular questions. Do you have headache? No. Do you have this? I said, no. And then nothing happened. So, but the next appointment, I had to insist that I need to get it done. When I was in the US, I always had this thing done every year. So I need to get it done. So instead of him doing a routine complete blood check, he sent me back to do a genotype because he didn't believe me. Maybe he felt like I was too old to have sickle cell. Or I don't think the medical teachings here goes deep into tropical diseases, so to speak. There's so many diseases out there.
Absolutely.
And it's a limit to what you can do in 4 or 5 years of medical school, right? So you have to sometimes learn on the job or continuous education.
Yes.
So he did the test. That was when he believed that I had that gene, and then he started following me up because he was like, okay, I didn't look like it. I said, yeah.
Is there a way you look?
Do you have to look? Yeah. Do you have to look like it? You know. So it's an opportunity to tell us that we have to advocate for ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know your body, and you should even know your blood more. Like if someone is telling you that you don't look it, it doesn't mean you don't feel it.
Professional, a medical professional.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you don't feel it. You know, you need to be able to speak for yourself. Okay, I want to get this test done, even if I have to pay for it. And a lot of times you don't have to pay for it, right? Even if I have to pay for it, let me know where I'm at as it concerns this particular disease. Right. So that was how I eventually got my doctor to sort me out, you know. So, and I got thinking, I asked a lot of people, do you know your genotype? Do you know your blood level? Do you know? And a lot of people don't know. A good thing is that most women knew, and why did they know? Antenatal care. If they didn't have to go for antenatal care, they wouldn't even know that they had high blood pressure at one time, or they had high blood sugar, or they were anemic, as you said, at one time or the other. So, but men do not know anything about some particular disease, except the only time somebody would say they knew was if they had symptoms and they went to the doctor and they were investigated for and they were placed on medication. But for the man on the street that is not on any medication, he doesn't know what's in there.
They pay attention to prostate cancer more than blood. I can tell you that.
And at a certain age.
At a certain age.
And at a certain age, especially when they start having symptoms, you know, and symptoms of prostate cancer is a lot. You can't hide it. Right. But for blood, it's subtle. There are some blood cancers that are more common in Black people, like chronic lymphocytic leukemia and multiple myeloma. They are not only more common in Black people, they have more, the prognosis is even worse in Black people. So if you don't know what you have, at least check your blood once a year or once in 2 years, because these things are very slow growing. And by the time you start having symptoms, they usually have gone, they've really advanced. So I spoke to people, did some research and read some books, some publications, and I realized that there's not just a problem with knowing one's blood in the Black community. There's actually a problem with donation, which brings us back to blood donation. So I started asking around. It was from racism. The story in the 80s was that the HIV/AIDS was brought from a Black person. So they were refusing blood from Black people. And then eventually that changed to malaria now and hemoglobin, as you mentioned. But the truth of it all is that if you're comparing a certain race against a certain race, their normals are usually different. So if you are in Canada and you tell me that my hemoglobin level is too low, it's because you're comparing me with the general population of Canada. Which is predominantly Caucasian. But if I were in Africa, I would be okay. Yeah. So also for a hemoglobin level, if my hemoglobin level as a regular person is 10, a man on the street, their hemoglobin level could be 16.
Mm.
If they fall to 10, they might faint. But I'm working on 10.
On 10.
Yes. So it depends on who is doing the test. It depends on the body that is concerned. And it depends on, so if you go, you are going to be set at a benchmark as the other individuals, not with your own kind of people.
So
which
it's very
makes
subjective.
it's very subjective. So it makes us always, carrying the short end of the stick, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. So, and because of that also, we have moved on from not just forming Know Your Blood as an organization, we moved on to speaking to the community, to anybody that wants to listen, that it's not just about donation. You need to, first of all, know what you have in there. And we're also talking to the Canadian Blood Services, right, about how we can organize donor drives. And they were very open to it. Because even if you and I were born and we grew up in Nigeria at one time or the other, we have children that were born here, right, that should be able to donate, at least. They don't have malaria. They've never had malaria before. So maybe they can donate, but a lot of people don't even know that they can donate. So how do we reach the community and educate them about, blood donation? Because we see how people coming in with thalassemia, with sickle cell, that need blood. And then when they get in the hospital, they don't have access to the blood that, works for them. Yes, best. And that blood will come from us. It should come from us because we are, treating us. Yes, absolutely. So is there a way, as you're speaking, as you're advocating for this, is there a way you can make them understand? And I know this is a huge call on you, but for any other person listening, for doctors who are able to advocate for blood donation, because if they're treating us and they need blood from us, is there a way that they could do blood drive so that when we go, even though they're saying, oh, you have low, they can take the blood and save it for people like us? If you're not going to take it for the general public, yes. So could you take for that is a great African blood for Africans? Yeah, that is like a great idea. But now that comes to equity. Of course. Yes. So the other socio-economic and socio-cultural options of equity for blood transfusion comes in place, and there's a lot of nuances to that kind of statement. I have discussed that already, and they was like, it's a good idea, but we can't do that. Like, yeah, the optics don't even sound. They don't doesn't look because good, and it doesn't sound. White blood, black blood, yellow blood, and how do you want to do that? But we have, as Black people, we have special antigens that if you do the test, you know that this is from a Black person. There are some antigens, for example, there's one RO, it's called Rho antigen. It's only seen in the Black communication. Not all Blacks, but you know that if you see it, it's most likely it's from a Black person. These are that option, like you go to a restaurant and you have all the options of the meals in there. So if you have lactose intolerant, you won't take this. If you have nuts intolerant, you won't take this, right? So you know that this one is what you can take for you. But what if the one you can take is not available, which is where we are right now? So we advocated for blood transfusion amongst the Black people, right? We are also advocated for these policies that disqualify Black people to be reduced or removed. Yeah, so that's where we are now. I've been in talks with representatives from the Canadian Blood Services, and the major topic of our last discussion was malaria. So the policy says if you've ever had malaria before, you are disqualified. Which is every person from West Africa. You cannot tell me you've never had malaria before. You live with malaria, And so, and I know in Europe, if you've had malaria, whatever, if you have been malaria free, or if you lived in a malaria zone and you've left for like 4 months, you can donate blood. But here it's outright disqualification. And I asked, why is that? And they were like, okay, so they tried it once and they realized that when they transfused a baby at one time with blood, they realized the baby had transfusion-transmitted malaria and the baby almost died. So that was an opportunity to cancel the donations. But that they had developed a new test that would genetically determine if a blood sample taken has malaria antigen in them. Okay, so yes, we have to test now.
Yes.
When I even start using
it.
Oh, well, it's been approved. However, we need to do some research and do some tests with it. I said, okay.
So there's bureaucracy around this.
There's a lot of bureaucracy around it. So when are you going to do this? It's okay. Well, it's just been approved now. They're working on the how to assess people to do the test. Okay, so where are you going to get these people? When we start, we'll let you know. Okay, can I even start bringing people in such that you have access to them? You have, and they were open to that. Okay, yes, let's do a donor drive. Invite everyone that comes in. Everybody comes in. Maybe 100 people come in and 10 people get to donate. But that 100, we have their contact details. When we're ready to do the test, we can call on everyone to let's do the test so that these things can move faster than it is. Because at this rate, we might still be in this particular policy for the next decade or 5 years. Let's see how we can hasten it and so that our people in the hospital can get access to blood transfusion. Yeah, to safer blood transfusion.
Right.
Because I mean, in all fairness, the blood there right now is safe, but we do not know the future, what your body will respond to in years to come, because you're already getting foreign things, introduced into it.
Right. Wow, that's a lot of advocacy. Thank you for doing that on our behalf. You're quietly doing Know Your Blood, and that's the name of the organization, Know Your Blood. We're going to put it in the description. And do you have a website? Do you have
we have
Instagram handle?
We have everything.
So, great. So we're going to put all of that in the description of our YouTube of this particular episode. Now. Before you go, Kemi, I know that for some people, for religious reasons, they would not want to accept blood transfusion.
Yeah.
For people who are sickle cell anemic, are there other options? Because what I hear you say is when you started learning, you found out that blood transfusion has a lot of positives to help in this area. Are there other options for people who say, I absolutely don't want blood transfusion?
There are so many options. So blood transfusion comes like as a last resort. With sickle cell. Thankfully, there are so many medications out there that are easily accessible that helps to prevent the red cell from sickling. So many options. So now, as I said, earlier in our conversation, I talked about how easy by time the child is like 5 years old, they pass on, or even teenage years, they pass on. And now sickle cell patients have been seen to live much longer than usual if they have access to their best quality. And thankfully, where we are right now, we have access to this as long as we know where to go and how to advocate for ourselves. So if your family doctor is not responding to your cry, you should probably ask for a referral to a tertiary institution where you have access to a lot of medications available and a lot of research drugs available. So for clinical trials in sickle cell. So there's a lot of background work going on. It's just that our people don't know about it. Or another thing I noticed that our people don't like to say they have sickle cell or they carry sickle cell.
Why is there a stigma around that? Why should there even be a stigma?
Well, like every other thing, there's a stigma around everything. I really don't know why, but the only thing that comes to my mind generally is, as I said, this marrying thing. Like, would I want my son to marry someone that has sickle cell?
I see.
And then we'll start going to the hospital. You know how we Africans are.
So they rather hide it.
They rather hide it. Right? They rather hide it. Or like me asking people what if I had met somebody that lied about his genotype, and I'm like, okay, I am AA, just marry me. And then I start having sickle cell.
And you're wondering how. And I'm wondering how.
And then, and a lot of things like that it has happened, right? Where you go under false pretenses to, sign contracts as a lifetime contract is marriage, and then it happens. So a lot of people try to hide these things because of what people will say. Oh, no wonder they are always in the hospital. Oh, no wonder this happened to her. It's really difficult, But
wow.
we can only do what we can do. Sickle cell was made. The history around sickle cell was because of malaria. It was supposed to protect us from malaria. In like 200, 500 years ago. That's what the history books say, because when the red cell is infected with malaria, it's expected that it will just replay lice before the poisons get to the brain, and the patient has cerebral malaria and whatnot. So a patient with sickle cell has a sickle cell a carrier, they fall ill, right? But they don't get up to the stage of having deep complications of malaria, because the red cell has lysed off. Malaria infects the red cells, if you know what I mean. So that was the history. But when that mutation was going on, maybe they forgot that at the end of the day, there are also a lot of other complications that come
can
with
arise
it.
from
And
that.
a lot of people also have sickle cell with thalassemia as well. So it's like a double barrel. And people don't know. And these people also have a lot of complications from that too. So it's always good just to know what you're dealing with, right? So that you can, sort yourself out and your family out, and at least know what's going on. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. So if there's anyone out there who's dealing with maybe children or even taking care of adults or themselves as carriers, what would your advice be to them today? From the work you do advocating for Know Your Blood, and as a professional and as a carrier yourself, what advice would you give to people to care for themselves, to advocate for themselves? And I know you've said most of it, but
there's a lot of advice I could give. As a carrier, take care of yourself. As a patient, take care of yourself, of course. Even everyone should take care of yourself. Drink fluids, rest when you can, and advocate for yourself. We all have access to doctors. If we don't, we know how you can find one easily. Advocate for yourself. Ask for some certain tests to be done. And remember that we have people in the hospital that need your blood. If you're healthy, try to donate to help next person. A pint of blood can save 3 lives. And so one blood from you will take platelets, will take plasma, will take red cells, and 3 people's 3 lives are saved in the hospital. So that way you are even keeping yourself healthy if you donate, because your blood starts producing more.
Replenish.
The replenishment factor is really great. It reduces risks of stroke, cardiovascular disease, and you get more clean blood, because your blood is like, okay, what's going on? I've lost some piles now. I need to make more piles, and then you have fresh piles that protect you more. So yeah, that's how blood transfusion and blood donation works. You're saving yourself and you're saving other people all at the same time. So you can be whatever you want to be, no matter what you're living with. HIV, sickle cell, thalassemia, nothing should derail you, nothing should distract you. You can, even if you have 50 years in life, that 50 years can be very impactful. Your time here matters to you and to everyone around. Make it worth it. That's what I would say.
Make it worth it. Wow, that's a great segue to end this. It's make it worth it. I really like that. No matter how long or short our lives are, I think it's the impact we make that really, that's our legacy. So on that note, take good care of yourself. God bless you, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.
Bye.